looks like a gun. Good morning, Terry here, and today I'm starting part 3 of my 3-part video series about making black powder for use in muzzle loading firearms. And if you hear water running in the background, my neighbor's sprinkler on the other side of this bamboo just came on. Yeah. In part 1, we looked very briefly at the history of black powder, what it is. We made some charcoal. Then in part 2, I made up a small batch of medieval style serpentine powder, the same type of powder that they would have used in their hand guns and serpentine hand cannons back in the late 1300s. So today I'm going to demonstrate how to make 2 types of modern corned black powder. But first, it is time to reiterate a few things that I went over in part 1. This video is being presented for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to encourage or advocate anybody to either make their own black powder or, depending on their jurisdiction, break any laws. While here in the United States, we are still allowed to make our own black powder at home, at least for now. It is still regulated by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and to a certain extent, the Department of Transportation. And there are also some state restrictions applied to it, because after all, black powder is an explosive. It is not a propellant like, say, Pyrodex or 777. Federal law in the United States allows private citizens to possess and store up to 50 pounds of ready-to-use black powder. That is a lot of black powder. That will blow a typical house completely off its foundations. Now, I'm not a lawyer, and I don't represent nor speak for any government agency, state or federal, and that includes the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, and the Department of Transportation. My advice is, hey, you know, the safest thing to do, both legally and personally, is just don't make it. If you decide to try making your own black powder, or you already are making your own black powder, and you decide to use anything in this video, just remember, you and only you are solely responsible for any consequences that occur. That having been said, it brings up a question. Why even make our own black powder in the first place? I mean, why not just go to the store and buy a 1-pound can of something, propellant or explosive? Use that up and then go buy another pound? Well, that's a valid question, and the answer is yeah, sure, we can. In fact, I've done it for many, many years. But there are some of us who just like doing things ourselves. I mean, you could also ask, why grow your own tomatoes when you can just go to the store and buy your own? You know, why paint the house yourself when you could hire someone to do it? I mean, and this could go on and on and on. There are just some of us who enjoy doing things for ourselves. And there are also a group of people who maybe want a little bit better quality, or at least want to try and produce a black powder, for example, of their own. That is a better quality than what they can purchase commercially, like, say, a GoEx. Now, some people love GoEx and other people hate it. Personally, until I started making my own, GoEx was the only black powder I ever used. It was just black powder. So I don't really have anything else to compare it to except mine. So I'm just not going to have an opinion on it one way or the other. And then there's also the financial aspects. A 1-pound can of GoEx, the last time I bought some, cost $30 locally. Could cost more where you live. I can make a pound of gunpowder every bit just as good, maybe better, as GoEx for a couple of bucks. I mean, yeah, I got some, equipment stuff out here, but none of it was really very expensive. Most of it I already had on hand, just using it for other purposes. And the financial investment is really quite minimal. So the two methods that I use both involve the same 5 steps: grind, mix, corn, granulate, sort, and glaze. So the two methods that I do use are called the ball mill and the slurry. Now the slurry is similar to the CIA, but there's some important differences we'll get into when I start the slurry process. So today I'm going to demonstrate how to make both. So put a pizza in the oven, hunker down, and get comfy. This is going to take a while. So for either method, we are going to need some things that are common to both ball mill and slurry method. First, we're going to need a ball mill. Yeah, for either one, we're still going to need a ball mill. We're going to need a press. Actually, this is mine, and I'll take this apart and talk a little bit more about it later. We're going to need our ingredients, of course. We're going to need a scale, something to measure in, and a spoon. We're going to need an adjustable, manually operated coffee grinder. We're going to need a little dextrin. We're going to add some dextrin and some graphite. So why the dextrin? Well, the dextrin acts as a glue. Now, dextrin is really just baked cornstarch. And when it gets wet and then dries, it acts like a kind of like a glue. It makes the grains harder. Additionally, we're going to need a couple of sieves. Got this one and another one, which I forgot to bring out, but we've got several different grades. A flat work sheet of some kind or a cookie sheet's always a good thing to have. Maybe some gloves, maybe another bowl and a mixer for the. And then, in addition to all that, with the slurry method, we're also going to want a saucepan, stirring spatula or something, maybe some isopropyl alcohol, some water, a blender, and a hot plate. And yeah, that's basically about it. Oh, and this clamp here is actually part of my press. I use a manual press, mechanical press, you could say. Okay, so let's get started first with the ball mill method. This is my ball mill. Actually, it is a rock tumbler that I bought from Harbor Freight a few years ago for about 40 bucks, but it works great as a ball mill as well. Let me set this aside and then let me open this up. This particular one has 2 cans, which always comes in handy. So let me open this up and show you what we got here. This is a nice tight. Okay, inside this ball mill, I've got some lead balls. Now these are actually 31 caliber, 44 caliber, and 54 caliber round bullets, but they still work as balls. Make great balls for a ball mill. So I'm going to make up a half a pound. And normally I could do a half pound in each one of these very easily. I could do 400 or 500 grams very easily, but I'm only going to make a pound today. That'll do me for quite a while. And I'm going to do a half a pound in this method and then a half a pound with the slurry method. So ingredients. Now the advantage to the ball mill is we don't have to pre-grind the ingredients, but we do have to make sure they're nice and dry, especially the potassium nitrate. And if you're curious about how much water potassium nitrate can hold, I weighed this out at 175 grams yesterday, and after spending the night in the dehydrator, it came out to 174 grams. So just this much actually contained a gram of water. Now that doesn't sound like much, but what's going to happen is you put that in this mill and you start rotating it, okay? And then you go to open it up. Instead of being nice and powdery and black and dusty and ready to use, it's going to have been all caked and beaten and pressed up against the sides of the can. Then you got to take a knife and you got to scrape it all out. And then you got to go to the slurry method anyway, because all that stuff's not really mixed up all that good. But the real great advantage to the ball mill method is it's very it's very low labor intensive. It's very labor non-intensive. However you want to say that. It doesn't take much physical work. So we've got 170 grams dry weight of potassium nitrate. Dump it in there. We've got 34 grams dry weight charcoal. Dump that in there and make sure it gets in the can. And 23 grams of sulfur. And then we're going to add our 2 grams of dextrin. So the rule of thumb, generally speaking, with dextrin is we're going to add 1 to 2 grams for every 100 grams finished weight of gunpowder. So I'm doing 227 grams here, so this have a total weight of 229 grams. Now, this is also waterproof. Now, this was actually designed to keep water in because it is a rock tumbler, but that also keeps water out. So once all of your chemicals are nice and dry and you put them in here, humidity is just really not going to be a real problem anymore. So we want to get that down there nice and tight. All right. Put her in here and just now take a break for 6 to 8 hours. Go eat that pizza. And really, that's all there is to it for now. I'm going to move this somewhere else where it's quieter, and I'll be back. Hey, I'm back. So let's get started with the slurry method while that ball mill is running. So for this method, we're going to need a hot plate, saucepan, spoon, our ingredients, of course, some water, don't need the static guard yet, and if you want to use some isopropyl alcohol, you can. It actually doesn't work as a solvent or anything like that. It just evaporates out quicker so that your powder will dry faster. It's a optional step. I typically don't use it because my experience has been that it'll dry out a lot quicker, which means you have less time to work with it, especially when I'm in front of the camera. Yeah, I could go on for hours. So I'm going to use water here, and I'm using purified water. I don't know that a chlorinated tap water, like a city water, would really be a problem. Never ran any tests to find out. I've just always used bottled, purified, or filtered water. So the great thing about the slurry method is that our chemicals can be just as wet as they want to be. It just doesn't matter because we're going to mix them with water anyway, right? But it does matter as far as getting your initial weights correct. Now, I put charcoal and sulfur through a dehydrator and lost not even 1/10 of a gram. So they're not absorbing water, but this potassium nitrate is. And out of 175 grams, I got 174 after spending the night in the dehydrator. Now, again, it's not much, except that I want 170 grams of potassium nitrate, not 169 grams of potassium nitrate and an extra gram of water. So I always dry it out anyway. Oven dehydrated, doesn't matter, just to get the initial weights correct. And then, of course, after that, it doesn't matter. So let's get this started. I got my hot plate turned on. Let's get some water in. And it doesn't take much water, but I can always add more because I'm just going to boil it and evaporate it all out anyway. So that's just not a problem. Use all you want. And I'm going to have to bring this to a boil. Then I'm going to dissolve the potassium nitrate in it. Okay, so be back in half an hour or so when this water's boiling. Okay, the water isn't actually boiling yet, but it is steaming and getting hot. So I'm going to go ahead and add the potassium nitrate and see if I need to add any more water or not. 170 grams potassium nitrate, 34 grams charcoal, 23 grams sulfur. 2 grams dextrin. Let's bring that to a simmer. And yeah, now we just wait. And we want it completely dissolved. Okay, that's nice and dissolved. Now we're going to add our charcoal, sulfur, and dextrin. Now the charcoal and the sulfur won't actually dissolve. It will hold in suspension though. And let's bring in the blender. The blender is an optional step that, again, a lot of people who use the slurry method don't use. I started using it just just thinking that maybe it would help mix the chemicals together even better than this. And it might. It might not. I haven't done any actual testing to see. Let's just say that is an optional step that you don't have to do, but I'm going to do it anyway. So I'm going to pour this down in there. Make sure there's no clumps of charcoal left behind. Set that down where it's safe. Let's move this out of the way. Move this up here. Okay, now we're nice and evenly mixed. Oh yeah, that's looking good. Mix back into the pan. So you can see the slurry method is more labor intensive than the ball mill, because where we can just turn the ball mill on and forget about it, we're actually cooking this method. Now this is where, when the CIA method, we would add chilled acetone, and then we would filter out the gunpowder, squeeze it dry, then dry and proceed from there. I tried the CIA method one time and it really didn't do much for me. It was a low grade gunpowder, and acetone is kind of expensive. You can see this. It's starting to sort of like form a skin or scum on the top. That means the water's down to the point now that it's starting to stiffen up. You can see bubbles are forming on it that stick, they stay. You can see these lines, this skin that's forming on the top. Means we're almost out of water. All right, see, we're going to see that we've got that texture now where you can almost hold it in your hand. Almost pick it up and hold it. If it was cool enough, I probably could. So now it's done. Turn that off. And now I'm going to transfer this onto here. And you can see how it's drying out very quickly. Breaking it up into smaller chunks will help it dry up even faster. Yeah, I'll be able to press this later today, the way it's drying out. Along with the ball mill. ball mill will be ready this afternoon. So will this. And some of these little balls here are getting really hard. And that's the dextrin. So they're getting hard already. They're wanting to break up into corns already. All right, I am back, and this is dry enough now that I'm going to go ahead and start making the press cake. That's what it used to be called in the old days. Today we call them puck. Well, let me show you about this press that I've got here. This is the mold, and this is a piece of 1.5-inch thick-walled PVC pipe. It's got a wooden puck, I guess you could call it, put on the bottom. And I put that in the bottom, and then on top of that, I'm putting this 1-inch, 1-ounce silver round. Okay, now why a silver round? Well, it's actually got nothing to do with the fact that it's silver. I just wanted to press metal against metal, and I happen to have a couple of these and to keep as good luck, really, in my pocket. And it just so happens that these are just about exactly 1.5 inches in diameter. So instead of having to machine something or pay somebody to machine something, I just use those. So what we're going to do here is clean out the spot. And I'm just going to put a big old teaspoon down in there. Put that silver round down on top. Put this rod, which I've wrapped with electrical tape. I don't really remember why exactly now. And let's take this over to the table and press it. Okay, so ball mill still running in the background. I put my powder and my mold here on this pallet, and I'm actually going to use this 8-inch C-clamp to compress the powder down with. So this 8-inch clamp actually has a clamp pressure rating of 15 tons. So I can get the same pressure with this as with a 15-ton hydraulic press. I'm not going to press it that hard though, because I have a feeling it would probably damage the clamp. I'm going to do a build video actually on making a hydraulic press just for black powder. And I'm going to clamp this thing down until it feels like it's not compressing anymore. And instead I'm just digging into the wood. So I'm sure I'm not putting, like I said, 15 tons on it, but you'd be amazed how easy it is to put 7, 8 tons of force on these. There, so I'm gonna let that wait for 10, 15 seconds or so, 20 seconds. It's not important that I count it. See if I can give it a little more pressure. That's about all. Clamp's moving off the bar. Okay, let's take it apart. And there is our puck, ready to dry out. So I'm going to go ahead and make up the rest of that powder that I made using the slurry method. It's like around noon. This stuff will be ready about 4 o'clock this afternoon. I'll have a look at it then. So I'm gonna make up some more pucks. So here are my finished pucks. I got 17. So show you this. There's an example, if you can see it, of what happens when you let it get too dry right there. So I just added some more water to them. 17 of them, that's what they look like. No, that's what they look like. We're going to let these dry out, and then I'll grind it up. Now, some people, I want to keep this too. Some people let theirs dry for as much as a week before grinding them. I'm going to try not to let mine dry that much. I'm actually tomorrow, I'll sacrifice one. I'll break a puck up into like bean-sized pieces. I'll grind up one bean, see how it looks, and if they're forming good 3F granules, then I'll finish it. Otherwise, if it's too powdery or whatever, I'll wait, do another one. And yeah, the ball mill is still running. It'll be done in 3 or 4 hours, and then I'll press it. So there's half a pound. There's there's half a pound, and I got half a pound still rolling. So now I get to clean this stuff up before my wife's head explodes. Be back in a minute. Okay, the ball mill has been running for about 7 hours now. So let's open it up and see what we got. All right, we got black powder. Let's filter it out from the balls. We've got ourselves a nice batch of black powder. So what I'm going to do now is add just enough water to it that it's like a crumbly brown sugar consistency. So we take the dust, get the dust out of it. And nice. So I'm going to add just enough water so that it's more like a brown sugar type consistency. And then I'm going to press that into pucks. So let's add some water. And it really doesn't take very much. And you might think, why, what a shame to ruin such good black powder by adding water to it. And there's no really exact amount of this. You can add a little more water than you would want and you'll be all right. A little less than you need and you'll know because your pucks won't stick together. They'll be all dry and crumbly when you try and compress them. I think that's about right. Okay, so before this starts drying up, let's start pressing. And I took this other little piece of wood that was I took that out. I don't know why I even put it in there. I added that this time. I didn't use it the last time I made powder. I just added that. And it wasn't really serving any useful purpose. So again, we're going to put about 1 big tablespoon in. About like that. I'm going to drop my silver coin down on top, press it down. Oh, put my plug in, my compression plug, and now I'm going to take it over to the workbench. All right, set this up here and start cranking in If you're wondering, how do I know really when I've got maximum compression put on it? Well, it's really very simple. The clamp starts to distort. That means it's not really applying any more pressure. Okay, it's not really applying any more pressure down. It's starting to warp and twist the clamp. And that's when I know it's maxed out. And it's easy to do with this cheater bar. And that's it. It's, you can, when I look down at it, I can see instead of where this is going straight down, this part is going kind of off at an angle a little bit. It's completely maxed out. So no more pressure will make any difference. So now I'm just going to give it a few seconds. All right, and that is tight. Loosen it up. Take it back over to the table. Now I'm going to open it up, push that through, and there's another puck right there. And wet, when they're wet like this, they're pretty brittle, actually. They'll crumble up pretty good. But once they dry out, these things are hard as a rock. Okay, so I'm just going to get busy and make some more. Make another 16 or 17, I guess. I'm going to hold this over here so in case I spill it. And keep going. Okay, so here we have 17 pucks from the Slurry method, and as they dry, I mean, they were pretty crumbly when they came out, and as they dry, they're getting harder already. This, of course, is where I let this one, get too dry when I tried pressing it. So I had that's when I added a little more water to them. And 15 of the ball mill method, but this one I got tired and you could say I mashed two together. I mean, see, I got two together. And several other these other ones were thicker than they should be. So I actually got the same amount, really 17 if we had them all, evenly compressed. And yeah, I know, I mean, to be scientific about it, I should weigh each one out so that each puck is exactly the same size. And maybe I will, who knows. But anyway, the mosquitoes are getting all over me now. It's in the evening, it's like 5 o'clock in the evening now. So I'm going to take these inside, let them dry, and there's no concerns about getting them confused. The messy one here is the slurry, and the one with the monster puck is the ball mill. So I'm going to get these inside, let them start drying out, and I will be back tomorrow to see if they grind.